Hello and welcome to another installment of Unity Quickie. In this video, we are going to learn about game objects and their components. For this video, we will use a 3D cube as an example. A game object is the sum of its components. The three game objects in this scene, the directional light, the cube, and the camera, each contain a different set of components because they each have a different function. However, there is one component that all of these objects share, and that is the transform component. The transform component holds the object's position, rotation, and scale. See how the corresponding transform parameters change as I move the object. See how the game object's rotation changes as I rotate it. And likewise for scale. Now, every 3D object contains a mesh. A mesh is pretty much the collection of polygons that make up a 3D object. Which is why you see there is no mesh component in the light, nor is there any in the camera because they're not 3D objects, but there is a mesh filter and a mesh renderer in the 3D cube. So the two mesh components, the mesh filter and the mesh renderer, are in every 3D object in Unity. The mesh filter passes on the mesh data, a cube mesh in this instance, to the mesh renderer. The mesh renderer renders the mesh in accordance with the parameters set here. Right now, and for this tutorial really, the only parameter you need to know about is the materials. But we'll discuss that in a later video. Next component we have is a box collider. Colliders are very important components in games. They are the components that allow your game engine to detect contact and collision between two or more game objects. Pretty much every game you play would involve some sort of collision between game objects. Even something as simple as your game character standing firm on the ground involves your character game object colliding with the ground game object. So now, if you want to add components, click on this button and you'll find a list of components sorted out categorically. For example, if I want to add some physics to the cube, I can add a rigid body. But before we do that, let me just show you what happens when we play the game right now. If you click on this button up here, you will start the game, and this is the view from your main camera. As you can see, the cube is just floating in the middle of the air because it doesn't have physics. Or rather, the more creative, it doesn't have a rigid body, so it's not affected by the physics of the game. Let's stop the game. Now, if we add a rigid body component, now the cube is affected by in-game physics. And when we press play, voila, it has physics now. To remove a component, you can click on the cork button here and remove your component. And if you click play on the game again, it's back to floating. Now you can also create empty objects to... Oops. Sorry about that. But you can also create empty objects to act as placeholders or, for example, if you have a group of cubes that are all behaving in the same way, you could parent them all under the same game object to manage them easier. So yeah. So right now, the cube is a child of the game object, empty object that we have just created. And if we move the game object, the cube moves along with it. Note that the empty game object has nothing but a transform, because it's pretty much just what it is. Now currently we have just been playing with objects that we have created in Unity. We can also import objects from external sources. If you didn't come from the article that this video is made for, you can check out the link in the description to download the files from the repository. And once you have done so, open your folder and look for the file called alice.fbx. FBX is the file format to hold 3D assets. So all you need to do is just drag and drop alice.fbx into the project view, and Unity will import everything for you, including the materials. It imports the 3D mesh, the rig, the animation avatar, and such. And to create a game object out of Alice, just drag and drop. There you go. It's as simple as that. Now for imported game objects with a lot of that contains like a lot of child objects, it will hold the main game object in sort of a really simple container. And if you look at the objects that are its child, you're able to see the 3D mesh itself. So the skin mesh renderer is a little bit different because it's an imported object, and the rig, which is used for its animation. Anyway, that is all for this video. In the next video, we'll delve into materials and textures. Thank you for watching.